Author and activist Songezo Zibi has launched a new movement that he hopes will uplift South Africans. He says Rise Mzansi has been taking shape after months of conversations between other activists led by the Rivonia Circle. That's a think tank. For more on his thoughts and perhaps the plans ahead, let's bring in Songezo Zibi, who joins us via our video link this afternoon. Great to have you on the program, sir. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Perhaps let's begin with the FAQs that I imagine are top of mind for many people. Is this another party?
No, and we're trying something novel that hasn't been done in South Africa before. Because one of the things we found out during the course of the past year is that South Africans are very skeptical of new political parties and party political culture in particular, which requires that to sign up a membership form, you get a T-shirt, and then you're expected to vote for that party whether or not you're happy with what it is offering. People have said they prefer a movement. So where we are right now is that there are hundreds of people that gathered on the 26th of November in 5 different venues via Linkup, must go out and mobilize to build a movement. And we've set a target of 1 million people over the next 5 to 6 months. And once you've got sufficient momentum of people behind the idea, then you can have a political formation that is registered with the IEC.
All right, so eventually the objective is to contest the elections in one way or the other, because it almost seems, at least from my perspective, if there is going to be any kind of material change coming from any movement, any organization, you need to find a way of inserting yourself into the political framework of this country. And it looks like the only way to do that is to become a politician.
Absolutely. I think we must be careful not to fall into cynicism as a result of the poor quality of politician that we have, because as a result of that, out of the 40 million plus people who are eligible to vote in South Africa, 28 million of them do not vote.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that even if just 500,000 people were to vote in any election, whichever party gets the majority of those would get to govern the country. So our message is we need to encourage South Africans to rise to the challenge of not only rescuing the democracy, but being active in their communities on a day-to-day basis and identify and lift up the kind of people who would be better representatives politically for the aspirations of communities, interest groups, and South Africans in general. And that is the phase in which we're in. So we're throwing the challenge back to people and saying, you've said what you don't want. Now you need to work to secure what you've said you want. And when you have, we will have a movement, and that movement will contest elections.
Let's delve deeper into that aspect. You know, many people will tell you that there is widespread disillusionment on whether politics and politicians, in fact, are the people we should be looking to in order to change the situation in this country. And I suppose the question then becomes, how do we widen those discussions, which, let's face it, have become echo chambers, you know, whether it's in the form of the kind of talks that are taking place in think tanks, it's any kind of conference, people who are thinking about these kind of movements. It's an Ayanda talking to a Songezo who's got Tessa Dooms and Lukhona Mnguni all in the same room yet again, cracking our skulls about how to move the country forward. So at some stage, we're going to need to bring in new people. And the question is, how do we do that?
Precisely. In fact, what we found out is that the disaffection is visceral. People get really, really angry. There was a civic engagement we had in eThekwini some months ago, where a former MP, not even from the ANC, a former MPL, not even from the ANC, from one of the opposition parties, wanted to be part of the engagement. And the participants said absolutely not. They do not want politicians in that discussion at all. They want to have their own discussion because politicians have disappointed them for too long. And we had to tell that person, who's a really lovely person, that she couldn't come to the discussion. The question is, how do you then turn that around into activism so that people learn to represent themselves, learn to mobilize themselves, and to determine the outcomes they want and then go and pursue those outcomes. Essentially, that describes the effort that we on, because there is disillusionment, and The other thing, of course, that we've been doing, which is different, is that we also believe that South Africans need to unite behind the social democratic idea and social democratic values. And on this basis, we've also been talking to multiple other organizations at national level, at regional level, and even at local level to say, if we share the same values, if we share the same principles, then let's talk about how we're going to deal with national priorities together.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons this is a movement rather than a classical political party, because everybody should be welcome who subscribes to the ideal.
Interesting terminology. I mean, if you've been able to see how disillusioned people are and how in some instances repulsed they are by politicians, are you not worried that by entering the political fray yourself, you might be stained by that blemish? And ironically, have people move away even from the parts of your message that did resonate with them before you formally, were part of any kind of electoral structure or political structure, sorry.
There is always at risk. I think what we need to do is to build a movement that is accountable, a movement that is open. I think the key thing, again, is that we have asked people to build the movement they've said they want. And right now, we don't have a so-called leadership team. This week, we are going to announce a campaign coordinating team, which is just at a national level. It is going to expand over time as people volunteer. It is then going to have other campaign coordinating teams in provinces, in districts, and so on. The teachable moment here is that we're saying to people, you've said what you don't want. You've said what you want. The only person you can trust is you. Therefore, you need to find those people that can be accountable to you. And those people need to later become your representatives and also do work in your own community. So you assess their track record. You assess their integrity. And that's the difference here, because people have said political parties give us a candidate list. Even if we don't like 70% of the people on that candidate list or know them, we are forced to vote for them. We're fed up with it. So again, we flipped the script around and said, great, let's do this together then. Hopefully that will restore people's faith in politics and representative politics again.
Sure. Part of the skepticism and the disillusionment comes from people feeling that they don't know enough around the behind-the-scenes machinations. Whether it's a movement or a political party, you're going to need money to get it off the ground and to keep it up there. Where's yours coming from?
So right now, the movement itself for the campaign is waiting for one of the banks to open a bank account. We're expecting them on Monday or Tuesday to give us a bank account. When we launch our website in the next few days, it's going to have a donate button. The important thing is which is one of the new things, the novel things we are introducing in South Africa, is that we need to establish what you have in the US as a very established culture of small and big donors into political organizations, because you expand the sphere of financial and other contribution. Right now, in terms of the work that we're doing in the campaign, everybody is volunteering. We have people volunteering to be graphic designers, people doing video ads for us, etc., which is great. It's something that we have not seen in South African politics before. We're just trying to turn this crisis into something really positive where everybody is involved and builds the political movement and the South Africa that they want.
A big part of the kind of public engagements you've been a part of has spoken greatly to issues around governance, for instance, bringing back integrity into any kind of leadership style somebody might take on. But if you do become a political party, if that all does work out, there are going to be people who are going to start asking more ideological questions around many other issues that affect us. For instance, topical now is the decriminalization of sex work. Essentially what I'm getting to is, if this were to become a political party, is there any clarity on which side ideologically it would lean and what that means for your constituency?
Absolutely. So one of the things we've discussed, especially at the previous meeting, is that our view is that the South African Constitution and South Africans in general are social democratic in outlook. And the values of social democracy are freedom, justice, equality, and solidarity. And we believe in the South African context, we need to add integrity to that proposition. That already says if somebody is right-wing neoliberal, this is not the place for you. If you are sort of about state planning and Marxist-Leninism, perhaps this is not the place for you. We are about uniting South Africa around a clear ideological proposition, which is why I mentioned social democracy in the beginning. And social democratic values come with both the ability to unleash the entrepreneurial spirit, but also a strong state that is a catalyst for development and safety in the country and in communities. And we believe that it strikes the kind of balance that reflects the South African general ideological position.
Sure. Some of the more prominent figures in, for instance, the Rivonia Circle will be recognized for other work they've done before. You, too, might have been recognized for the work you've done as a journalist. What's a response to people who are skeptical because of that history? In other words, this feeling that a journalist turned politician is somebody we need to be extra worried about, because how else do we know that in your journalism, this wasn't always the objective? Address that layered concern that people might have at the back of their minds.
No, actually, it was the journalism that had one of the most profound impacts on me, because as a journalist, as you would know, you get to meet and listen to and tell profound stories from a people perspective and also from the perspective of the country. In my case, I was at the Financial Mail and the Business Day, and I was in the unfortunate position, unfortunately, of being so during the worst of the state capture and corruption years. And I saw from closer, because I had an opportunity to speak to people who later turned out to be witnesses at the Zondo Commission, how the country was being destroyed by people who claimed to be leading it in the right direction. The second thing I would say is that, we all have a background. I'm fortunate enough to have just made it to vote in 1994. I must tell you, Ayanda, the hopes and dreams I had in 1994 when I voted as a teenager, I am not ready to let them go. And I am not ready to let them see them being destroyed. And I also want to see a country that lives up to the expectations that I had, and I think many more South Africans have similar hopes and dreams for the country, and in that respect, we should all work together.
Songezo Zibi, may it be a smooth journey to 2024. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Really appreciate your time. Songezo Zibi, an author as well as an activist and among the founding members of the Rise Mzansi political movement.